Exploragonians. Wow, you went really low there. That's nice.
Exploragonians. Yeah, go.
Exploragonians.
Oh, I guess I could have like kept the beat
No,
going.
there's absolutely no. You're dancing.
1, 2, 3, 4.
So I want to talk to you about jicama because when I think of a jicama, I think of like something that used to be a potato but then transcended. But we have some freshly peeled jicama, and I was trying to like wash my hands, and as soon as my skin got wet, it was like super slimy, like like cartoon booger slimy, not like real booger slimy.
Cartoon.
You know, in a cartoon where like boogers are all kind of like goopy and gross. Like I feel like that was my fingertips, and no amount of soap would get it off. And so now I'm worried that the jicama has like infused into my skin.
Maybe it's moisturizing.
I don't know. Well, it definitely created a seal, whatever happened.
Everyone loves that. The jicama seal.
It's like jicama is like the missing link between dinosaurs and Vaseline.
Yes.
Petroleum jelly. Jicama jelly. Jicama jelly.
Jicama, yeah.
Jicama, yeah.
All right.
Well, big jicama, if you're listening, you can take that. You just have to pay Katie.
Okay. Well, I want to talk to you
Me?
about what feelings come up when I say the word Tillamook.
Cheese isn't a feeling, but it bubbles near the top.
I don't know that cheese should bubble.
Cheese could. If you heat up that cheese, it'll bubble, and then the grease will separate from it, and then you'll have a mess.
If you're talking about Velveeta, that is not cheese.
No,
and I am not.
Velveeta is
okay.
so...
Don't even say that word. I feel like we should bleep this out.
Velveeta.
No.
It sounds like where we visited Ellen in Belgium, Velviezelt. It just makes me think of Velveeta. Do you think it's
Gross.
similar?
No.
Do you
Okay.
think that's where it originated? Is there a wellspring of Velveeta somewhere in Velviezelt?
I'm gonna puke. Okay.
Puke up Velveeta. Can you imagine puking up Velveeta?
I can't even imagine eating Velveeta.
It's a trip. But I think Velveeta.
Like, what is this name?
You can't see Katie's glasses, but they're like fogging up from the pure rage that you're feeling from being like a dairy princess.
Is it steaming? Is it coming out of my eyes?
Yes, it's coming out of your Velveeta colored eyes.
You know, as a dairy princess, they'd probably say, just represent everybody. So probably people wouldn't be happy that
Are you here to say, no, we don't represent that?
I don't represent that. I am not pro.
I don't
at
appreciate
all.
that it's shelf stable.
No.
I mean, we can leave some cheese out for a while. I mean, we had that block of Sharp on that 3-week road trip, and it was just kind of out. Like, we put it in a cool bag that had nothing cool in it, except we just expected, like, the cheese to have, you know, the ability to keep itself cold, like self-regulate its own temperature, like an airbender.
It was delicious, and we're fine.
We are fine.
Not that we are trying to promote that.
Do you think that's where the amoeba came from?
No.
Like the cheese had just
How
gotten...
dare you blame the cheese?
I wouldn't blame the cheese. I'd blame Velveeta.
Hey, feelings. I'm asking how you feel, not about your cheese bubbles, okay?
Oh, my cheese bubbles. How I feel. Stressed. I think stressful comes up. You know, when you're in your hometown, but you are an adult.
Okay, wait. It's probably like being in your hometown as an adult, but maybe you're like, I don't really want to be here.
Yeah, and the fact that I've like made a bunch of people mad during my time at the newspaper, that doesn't really help. Especially when it is a small town, and people are like, hey, I recognize your tiny thumbnail picture in the newspaper. You're that guy. And I'm like, I'm that guy.
Okay, well, so when I say doing an episode about Tillamook, what feelings come up?
I'll probably also stress.
Okay, what is another one?
Anger.
Oh my God. Why should we do an episode about Tillamook?
Because we know so much about it, because we've been here. We're like, you know, ingrained. My roots are here. I want to move my roots, but this is where they're at. They're full of dirt.
Oh, your roots are moving. But
Aw.
I will say we never miss Tillamook more than when we are abroad. We are somewhere else, and it's like, oh my God, Tillamook is so awesome, and Oregon's so awesome, and blah, blah, blah. Like,
I will say, I don't think we ever say Tillamook is so awesome. I think we go, oh, the coast.
Well, that's probably true.
I would say, if anything, we would say, Tillamook County rocks. Because Tillamook has an odd designation of it being a Highway 101 city, but it's not on the beach. Whereas most of the other Highway 101 cities are a stone's throw away. I can't throw a rock and hit the beach from any point in Tillamook.
That's true. But Tillamook is still, don't write it off. We have a complicated relationship, but overall are proud of our little hometown. And they, as a whole, I would say the town is trying to make the town a better place, right?
And the people, it's full of really people with good hearts. We have a lot of really good nonprofit programs. We have a bunch of ways to get people involved. For example, you and I have helped out with Tillamook's outdoor school program for almost half our lives at this point, and that's a nonprofit where we have a full volunteer staff who come, and it's people who've either grown up through the program or it's people who have some sort of relationship, and they come and they talk about the importance of the outdoor education. But I think most people come back, and what's special about that program is that it teaches about empathy. And so in a small area, the Oregon coast offers so much for people, and to the point where people don't really travel or leave that often. And so to remind us within our population to have empathy, that can help people grow and change if they don't necessarily leave.
Well, and then on top of that, Tillamook also does, or the high school does, a charity drive every year. And that's 2 weeks long. And apparently I have this tick where I'm...
You also have a slight speech impediment that comes out when you're tired, and I think it's adorable.
Only when I'm tired?
Well, I think, sometimes you're driving and you're like, so I can't do it. I'm like, maybe I should drive. And you're like, no, you drive like a bear.
You can see when I start slurring my words or just my S's.
Katie, you ate half an apple this morning, and it filled you up somehow. I don't know if it was body and soul, but I feel like you were intoxicated by the amount of half an apple in your stomach. And
almond butter.
And a quarter of a coffee.
I know. I don't know. Something happened to me.
About 3 ounces of coffee and put you over the edge.
I also took a vitamin.
Ooh.
So anyway.
So charity drive.
Yeah, so charity drive goes on, and each class, freshman, sophomore, junior, senior, it's a competition, but they all raise really enormous amounts of money.
What's an enormous amount of money?
I
think they crack 100,000 every year pretty reliably.
I think so too. It's a lot. And I think initially when it started, it was for March of Dimes, and that was for polio.
It might have been for polio. Anyway, it doesn't go to March of Dimes anymore. It goes.
So half of the amount goes to Dornbecker's Children's Hospital in Portland, but then the other half gets divided between a bunch of different nonprofits or different organizations that can
nonprofits,
and scholarships.
Organizations, scholarships. Some of it goes into an endowment fund.
But the point is that Tillamook there are things going on, and there's a lot of good that happens here, and yeah, I think now the next big thing is, I think for Tillamook to find its own niche.
It looks like it hurts the way you're saying it.
I was trying to take my mouth in a different direction there.
Niche?
Anyway.
Friedrich Nietzsche?
Because I think forever it was just Tillamook, the creamery.
Tillamook is very blue collar. The industries are, it's dairy farming, it's logging, it's fishing. Those are kind of the big kind of tent pole industries locally. And so much with the Oregon coast is changing with a shift toward tourism being such a facet. And the town wasn't really designed for that. The town really had Tillamook as a town probably peaked 50s, 60s, 70s probably, just a lot of local shops. My grandparents, your grandparents talk about all these really great restaurants, places to go. It was just a very vibrant community.
It was a thriving downtown. And then my mom's family sold their dairy farm to the local Kroger, and it is a Fred Meyer now. And my grandparents would always say that that's what killed the downtown.
Not the grandparents that sold the farm, but the other grandparents.
That's true. That's true. So, yeah, I mean, it is just so interesting. Like, I just remember growing up and I like so much wanted a strip mall, but I just wanted places to shop. I wanted the downtown to be alive. And we would host some events, but you're like, oh, there's like a couple vendors and there's nothing really happening. Like an event that just took place, Moonlight Madness.
A classic.
I used to dance, and it was like, right, the idea was the businesses would stay open late and they would maybe do some fun discounts, and there was like music and dancing and things happening.
Well, speaking of Moonlight Madness, I had a dream last night about going to the old defunct Movie Time Video, which was not in downtown, it was in Uptown. And so they're separated.
Whoever calls it Uptown?
Well, because it's north of town.
I feel like I didn't know that was Uptown.
Yeah, haha.
But are we just considering that building that was literally raised to like stay out of the flood water?
Well, I mean, because Uptown,
or is it beyond? Is like the Creamery Uptown?
The Creamery is its own entity. It's like
is Fred Meyer Uptown?
It certainly is.
Okay.
But when you cross the bridge and you cross like the slough and the river, like you cross over into no man's land. That's a completely different area. Mm-hmm. This makes it sound like Tillamook's huge, which it's not. Anyway, I had a dream about Movie Time Video. So once the Fred Meyer went into town in the mid-late 90s, it sucked downtown Tillamook dry. And so I feel like industry tried to move into like that uptown area, or at least that was like a direction things were going, but then Tillamook just kept flooding. That's one of the boons of living where Tillamook is it's a name that means land of many waters, and we have 5 rivers, a bay. Again, we are a really hard stone throw from the beach. Superman could make it there. And so with that, like when there's like a La Nina season, or if there's something happens and there's like a bunch of snow packed up and then it warms up and all that snowpack runs into the rivers and then it floods the town. And so back in the day, like Tillamook would flood in like the 90s and beyond, and like that floodwater would just be in town for like a week.
Yeah.
Just obliterating businesses. Mm-hmm. Like I can't count how many times like we couldn't go to Dairy Queen because it was being repaired for flood damage.
That's true. I mean, right, which is kind of a weird thing, but to us it was pretty normal. Or it's like, yeah, there was that thing, and now we got to clean up all this mud. And like, right, I used to work at a coffee shop cafe thing
in Uptown.
Apparently. And
which was a strip mall. I would say that area was a strip mall.
Oh God. Okay, sure. And I just remember it flooded, and we went to look at the floodwater, and I think I saw my boss and like her son or something that was going to kayak in to see what was going on and if there was water in the building, which there was. And so I just remember coming to work afterwards and like cleaning up the floors. I mean, and it was pretty dirty in there, but then afterwards and like the water damage, and so it was kind of like the floor went up
like
in
warped.
some spots, and yeah.
Wait, you cleaned up flood damage before?
Yeah, I've cleaned up some things.
I'm really impressed by that.
I mean, it wasn't like I wasn't the first one on the scene or anything.
I think your grandpa, wasn't he on like the local news once because he was cleaning up his veterinary hospital uptown?
I don't know.
I think there was a story there.
Is there a story there?
Bah.
Yeah.
But just imagine, like, you realize that the town's kind of shut down because of all this water damage. The storm ceases. And so, like, the next morning, like, as a curiosity, like, you go out with your parents to see what the flood damage is. And so I just have so many memories of going out just, like, where Highway 101 kind of dips a little bit as it goes north. Mm-hmm. And that is what really separates uptown from downtown physically.
Right.
Even though down is higher elevation and up is lower elevation.
Well, our big Safeway store.
All the time!
Used to be there, and it got flooded so many times, like, in our childhood. And so then now it has moved and is, like, way closer to the downtown. And actually, it's very confusing because it's just all of a sudden you're, like, driving on this road, and like it used to be a through street, but now that through street is all of a sudden you're just in the Safeway parking lot, and there's a Safeway there.
It's very urban in its planning, and so you technically have to cross the street to go to the store. It's It's not great design, but it is what it is.
I mean, I think that that's just the theme with Tillamook. It's
It's not great design.
it's
but
not great, but we make it work, and
Yeah.
no one's saying it's perfect. As mentioned, I grew up on a dairy farm. My parents are a part of the Tillamook Creamery, which is a 113-year-old farmer-owned co-op that was started in 1909. And our farm is outlined by the Tillamook River. I'm a little biased, but it's really beautiful. And we have the pretty Jersey cows.
Which I
And-
didn't understand what the difference between any of them were. You call me a city boy. Like, me growing up, I remember going to the local Tillamook Coliseum movie theater, and they'd have, like, the locally made ads about different types of cows. And so I want to be like, oh, this cow does chocolate milk. And so
yeah, who was coming up with those? I don't know.
we just wanted to get as far away from agriculture as humanly possible. So we just really wanted to confuse children.
So the Jersey cows are the smallest of the cows. They are brown. They produce high butter fat, which is really great for cheese and ice cream.
But Jersey cows also make me think of your grandfather's shop. He has that banner about Jersey cows, and I want it so bad. It's like this really regal painting of a Jersey cow. If it was in an animated film, she'd probably talk like this. And it says, Jersey, less cow to feed, more cow to milk.
Lovely.
So is there a relationship with the Jersey cows to the Isle of Jersey?
There-
That's between England and France.
There is. And once upon a time, we talked about going, but then we didn't.
Well, we went right past it, literally.
We waved.
So for you being on the farm, like, you were one of many, many farm kids growing up in the Tillamook area. So did you ever feel like you were kind of a part of that?
Was I a part of the other Tillamook kids?
Yeah.
I mean, from a distance. I think I like to separate myself a little bit.
You probably felt like some camaraderie there.
Maybe a little bit. I think it's hard to say. I'm just doing my own thing. But growing up, I think I was different. Like, my parents were a little protective. I was not the type of farm kid that had to wake up every morning and milk the cows and do all the chores before going to school. That was my mom, who also grew up on a farm. And I knew. So yeah, we were friends with other people that were farmers, and they, we had friends that they no longer have the farm, but all those kids had to wake up and do their chores and do all the stuff before school, and they were not paid, right? And it was just this expectation, like, this is our livelihood, and you were gonna participate, and that's it.
But that was like such a common thing in this area, and just agriculture in general. Like, my grandma, she was one of 13 here locally, and those kids didn't go very far. So it's like, this is like one of the reasons I'm related to everybody.
There we go.
All these farm kids had all these very prolific. But yeah, my grandma had all these stories about how she had to wake up before school, do all the chores, and then go off to school.
Right. So for me, it was definitely more of an option. And even my older brother, like, he definitely had to go to the barn, do some chores, and maybe not right before school, but for me, I did a lot of, like, feeding the calves, the baby calves. That was more my speed. And I mean, I have milked cows, but that was not.
Wait. So did you milk a cow by hand?
I feel like I've tried it.
Okay.
It was like it's like you see it and you're like, oh, I want to do that. Like, get my little pail out there and go for it. But I mean, there is a technique that I do not have, and I don't want to sit there trying to get the rhythm. But I feel like I did, but just it was very short-lived.
So the idea is, again, I'm city boy, raised in city limits, even though I had a forest in my backyard. So you can't see this right now. Katie, you can. So I've got my two hands out in front of me.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm gonna want to warm my hands up first, right? You don't want to go in cold, right?
Right.
And so is the idea, like, you grab the teats,
Mm-hmm.
and you kind of like do like a pull squeeze thing with like the finger, like you kind of like have the fingers
Wow.
cascade down. It's very slow right now. I'm gonna say borderline sensual on accident, but is this kind of like the finger pull move?
I mean, you have like spider hands or something going on. I don't know that that's exactly it.
Yeah, I do have really, really long fingers.
I think that we would have to,
Go down to the farm.
right. I think you need some more hands-on experience.
We should probably just be recording this like on site.
I mean, that would be nice.
Yeah, we can interview a cow.
That's true. I think just like my parents wanted to be proactive. Like there are definitely farm accidents that happen, and it was just, yeah, I am the only girl, and they were a little. I think my dad probably more than my mom. Yeah, was a little more paranoid about, or like just proactive with what they wanted me to do and not do. But I learned how to drive on the farm. Like I think
What did you drive?
well, at first it was the 4-wheeler, and it was like I wanted to steer, and that was oh yeah, I loved it. And I think
So you'd like be sitting on a lap, or what would you be doing?
early on, I just feel like I came out of the womb wanting to drive. I don't know. It's like let me steer. So I did that a lot, and then
Do you get pretty fast out in the fields doing that?
oh yeah, well, depending.
Within reason.
But see, right, and I love to go for rides. So like if my brother was driving or whoever,
So what are you doing on the 4-wheeler out there?
usually checking the fields or checking the cows that are like out on pastures, making sure everybody's good and nobody's having an issue, and so yeah, so then that eventually, like I remember we got a new 4-wheeler and there was a little sticker after I'd already been driving for years, and it was like, oh, like nobody under this like age, and I was definitely underage, but I was like, I don't know.
It was kind of like when you grow up and you find out there's like all these like, I feel like the restrictions on who can sit in the passenger seat like changes all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, oh wait, the infant can't sit up here with me. Oops.
Right, I'm driving through the fields, well, and eventually driving like my dad's truck through the fields, checking the cows, blasting the music.
Wait, how old were you driving the truck through the fields?
That's a good question.
Who can say?
Who can say?
Wait, you're like solo?
Yeah, because eventually, or it was just like it was like, oh, do you like? Will you go down and check the cows at night? And so I would go, especially in the summers. But I was like, ooh, Dad, can I drive? I mean, yeah, it was definitely before. I don't know, 13. I don't know.
I love that.
Oh, I loved it. It was just, and I felt so cool. So yeah, if anybody was over, like my cousin, it was. But then maybe my dad put the kibosh on that. I mean, like, maybe you shouldn't be driving like their kids in the truck. So anyway,
Please don't arrest Katie's parents.
so
So what are some of the things that you remember doing or like to do in Tillamook?
I feel like growing up, my parents were pretty involved with like different organizations. We went to the Methodist church, and they were like always doing things. I like was volunteering, and I enjoyed being active. It's hard for me to remember what I liked because I think I was just so busy doing different activities.
Do you think that was pretty common for someone your age to be pretty busy and active growing up in Tillamook?
Well, I mean, it probably just depends on who you are. I mean, a lot of my friends were not. I just think I had two parents that were active in different organizations, and like, right, we were part of the dairy industry and community here. I grew up on a dairy farm. My parents are a part of the Tillamook Creamery, which is a 113-year-old farmer-owned co-op that was started in 1909. And our farm is outlined by the Tillamook River. I'm a little biased, but it's really beautiful. And we have the pretty Jersey cows.
Which I didn't understand what the difference between any of them were. You know, you call me a city boy. Like, me growing up, I remember going to the local Tillamook Coliseum movie theater, and they'd have like the locally made ads about different types of cows. And so I want to be like, oh, this cow does chocolate milk. And so
yeah, who was coming up with those? I don't know.
We just wanted to get as far away from agriculture as humanly possible. So we just really wanted to confuse children.
So the Jersey cows are the smallest of the cows. They are brown. They produce high butter fat, which is really great for cheese and ice cream.
But Jersey cows also make me think of your grandfather's shop. He has that banner about Jersey cows, and I want it so bad. It's like this really regal painting of a Jersey cow. If it was in an animated film, it should probably talk like this. And it says, Jersey, less cow to feed, more cow to milk.
Lovely.
So is there a relationship with the Jersey cows to the Isle of Jersey that's between England and France?
There is. And once upon a time, we talked about going, but then we didn't.
Well, we went right past it, literally.
We waved.
So for you being on the farm, you were one of many, many farm kids growing up in the Tillamook area. So did you ever feel like you were kind of a part of that?
Was I a part of the other Tillamook kids?
Yeah.
I mean, from a distance. I think I like to separate myself a little bit.
You probably felt like some camaraderie there.
Maybe a little bit. I think it's hard to say. I'm just doing my own thing. But growing up, I think I was different. Like, my parents were a little protective. I was not the type of farm kid that had to wake up every morning and milk the cows and do all the chores before going to school. That was my mom, who also grew up on a farm. And I knew. So yeah, we were friends with other people that were farmers, and they, we had friends that they no longer have the farm, but all those kids had to wake up and do their chores and do all the stuff before school, and they were not paid, right? And it was just this expectation, like, this is our livelihood, and you were going to participate, and that's it.
But that was like such a common thing in this area, and just agriculture in general. Like, my grandma, she was one of 13 here locally, and those kids didn't go very far. So it's like, this is like one of the reasons I'm related to everybody.
There we go.
All these farm kids had all these very prolific. But yeah, my grandma had all these stories about how she had to wake up before school, do all the chores, and then go off to school.
Right. So for me, it was definitely more of an option. And even my older brother, like, he definitely had to go to the barn, do some chores, and maybe not right before school, but for me, I did a lot of like feeding the calves, the baby calves. That was more my speed. And I mean, I have milked cows, but that was not.
Wait. So did you milk a cow by hand?
I feel like I've tried it.
Okay.
It was like it's like you see it and you're like, oh, I want to do that. Like, get my little pail out there and go for it. But I mean, there is a technique that I do not have, and I don't want to sit there trying to get the rhythm. But I feel like I did, but just it was very short-lived.
So the idea is, again, I'm city boy, raised in city limits, even though I had a forest in my backyard. So you can't see this right now. Katie, you can. So I've got my two hands out in front of me. Mm-hmm. If I'm gonna want to warm my hands up first, right? You don't want to go in cold, right?
Right.
And so is the idea, like, you grab the teats and you kind of like do like a pull squeeze thing with like the finger, like you kind of like have the fingers cascade down. It's very slow right now. I'm gonna say borderline sensual on accident, but is this kind of like the finger pull move?
I mean, you have like spider hands or something going on. I don't know that that's exactly it.
Yeah, I do have really, really long fingers.
I think that we would have to
go down to the farm.
Right. I think you need some more hands-on experience.
We should probably just be recording this like on site.
I mean, that would be nice.
Yeah, we could interview a cow.
That's true. I think just like my parents wanted to be proactive. Like, there are definitely farm accidents that happen, and it was just I am the only girl, and I just they were a little. I think my dad probably more than my mom. Yeah, was a little more just proactive with what they wanted me to do and not do. But I learned how to drive on the farm. Like, I think
what did you drive?
Well, at first it was the 4-wheeler, and it was like I wanted to steer, and that was I loved it. And I think
so. You'd like be sitting on a lap, or what would you be doing?
I think early on, I just feel like I came out of the womb wanting to drive. I don't know. It's like let me steer. So I did that a lot, and then
do you get pretty fast out in the fields doing that?
Oh, yeah. Well, depending.
Within reason.
But see, right, and I love to go for rides. So, like, if my brother was driving or whoever,
So what are you doing on the four-wheeler out there?
usually checking the fields or checking the cows that are, like, out on pastures, making sure everybody's good and nobody's having an issue. And so, yeah, so then that eventually, like, I remember we got a new four-wheeler and there was a little sticker after I'd already been driving for years. And it was like, oh, like, nobody under this, like, age. And I was definitely underage, but I was like, I don't know.
It was kind of like when you grow up and you find out there's like all these like I feel like the restrictions on who can sit in the passenger seat like changes all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, oh wait, the infant can't sit up here with me. Oops.
Right? I'm driving through the fields. Well, and eventually driving, like, my dad's truck through the fields, checking the cows, blasting the music.
Wait, how old were you driving the truck through the fields?
That's a good question.
Who can say?
Who can say?
Wait, you're like solo?
Yeah, because eventually, where it was just like, it was like, oh, do you like, will you go down and check the cows at night? And so I would go, especially in the summers. But I was like, ooh, Dad, can I drive? I mean, yeah, it was definitely before, I don't know, 13. I don't know.
I love that.
Oh, I loved it. It was just, and I felt so cool. So yeah, if anybody was over, like my cousin, it was. But then maybe my dad put the kibosh on that. I mean, like, maybe you shouldn't be driving like their kids in the truck. So anyway,
Please don't arrest Katie's parents.
so, and like my grandparents were also very involved, and so I think and I like to do things. And if we had family visiting, I feel like it was pretty busy.
I think you were lucky in that way because I think I was one of the kids that, you know, not a lot of creativity was happening with thinking of ways to get me involved. I think a lot of younger people specifically always kind of bemoan Tillamook and its lack of opportunities and things for younger people to do. And now I think there are some entities trying to get kids like involved more at a younger age. Like in the past few years, like the Oregon Coast Football Club has really kind of like ballooned.
Yeah, and it's interesting to think about because I think growing up, I would always hear this about how there's nothing to do in Tillamook and it's so boring and and I think that was just something that was very attractive when we started hanging out is we weren't bitching to each other back and forth about how lame Tillamook is. And it was like, oh, let's go drive to the beach. That isn't in Tillamook, but it's pretty close. Or like, let's go walk around here. We were just going and...
So if we left from our house, we're like a little, like we're slightly west of downtown Tillamook. We're like a mile west of downtown Tillamook. How long would it take us to drive to the beach?
15 minutes.
You think 15? I think 10. I think it's 7 miles to Cape Mears.
It's probably true. It depends how we're driving.
Slow.
All right, fine. So, okay. At a max, 15 minutes.
Okay, cool.
I mean, obviously, what were we even doing early on? I just feel like we would...
Like when we were just friends.
Yeah.
I think a lot of it we were hanging together at like playgrounds because I grew up with like the elementary school playground in my backyard. And by backyard there was a forest separating them, but it would still take like 10 minutes to get there. So, I mean, we would walk to the elementary school. It's pretty vast. They have a big field that's very much underutilized, but I guess it's good for kids to run back and forth. I don't know. It's a lot of land in that playground. You know, you and I would swing a lot. I think that was something that was like a big deal. Like we just chat on the swings and swing on the swings, swinging.
Yeah. Go get coffees, go do whatever.
You were definitely more into the coffee culture than I was. Tillamook has a big coffee culture scene, and I think a lot of that has to do with like this industry here, like the logging, the fishing, the farming, where people are getting up pretty early. Before it was cool, we had a ton of coffee shops, like those little drive-up kiosks.
Way before we had a Starbucks. And then at one point, Tillamook had 3 Starbucks on top of the already however many coffee shops we have.
Booming.
Right. So there was not a lack of coffee option going on here. But to be fair, we're also not saying that this is like super high-end, the beautiful latte art, microfoam. That is not. That is not in abundance.
But it's fun. They make really good blended drinks. That's like a hot thing here.
Right? Blended ice. It's like, I mean, they have lots of flavors. I mean,
many flavors.
I think that for what they are doing, it is high quality versus, I mean, because we've been to a lot of coffee shops, just run of the mill, rando, other small towns, other bigger cities. And yeah, for what we're getting, I do think that Tillamook offers a higher quality drink. So, surprise, surprise.
Yeah, I think we did a lot of that. I mean, we would definitely just kind of tour around Tillamook County for sure. Like we would just kind of like go on like quick trips. I think my car had an issue, so I had you drive me to an interview in Pacific City to go work at the Pelican Pub. So I was like, Katie, I need a ride.
That's nice.
Yeah, you're a great friend. But Tillamook specifically, I mean, did you and I go hang out at like the Creamery Visitor Center very often? I know that you came and saw me once when I was working the retail area of the
I
Visitor
did?
Center. Yeah, you and Victor. Like, yeah, I think you were taking him home or something.
Oh man, I did used to frequent the Creamery all the time. It was like going to the cheese factory, and I would like to hit it early in the mornings before the big crowds would show up and get my little cheese samples, walk around. I don't know. It was comforting to me. Maybe have an ice cream. Depends on my mood. And so yeah, I guess I did go a lot. I don't go to the new one very much, and I think it's just not the same vibe for me.
A lot of good memories in that quaint older one.
Yeah, but yeah, if you've never been, it is interesting and definitely probably the most famous thing to do in Tillamook, or the most popular thing to do.
Well, it helps that like the namesake of the town is also what the product is. So you're like, oh, Tillamook, synonymous. Look at that. Not to be confused with the Tillamook Country Smoker, which is a very different entity and an entity that's completely different. They are not related at all.
No, but also successful.
Well, I think they were piggybacking on that name.
Probably.
That was not. Plus, they're based out of Bay City, which is the next town north. So, I mean.
Yeah. I mean, there's some questionable decisions, but that's okay.
Tillamook, there's a slough in town. A slew of things. So there's a slough, which is like a body of water that's kind of self-contained, but it rises and falls with the tide. And for a long time, there was a mill in like downtown. I mean, there's a lot of mills in downtown Tillamook. But there was a mill just right on the slough.
What does that mean, a mill?
Well, I mean, they were milling logs. They were receiving wood, and then they were turning it into wood products that they would send out. And so, yeah, right by our high school in Tillamook is a lumber mill. Mm-hmm. And frequently, because they do something to like dehydrate the wood, right? And that's why you see like a steam stack up there.
I have no idea what they're doing at the mill. That is no man's land for me.
You know, it takes up like a significant amount of the town. Like when you really think about it, like there's kind of like two sides of town, and I kind of think it's like what side of the mill you living on.
Oh, you think so? Well, like our friends, they had moved somewhere and were like pretty close to the mill.
The mill.
It was like much louder than I was anticipating, and I think it was definitely a trip.
See, I don't know. I think at that time was the mill like a 24-hour, like was it running all hours of the day?
I guess, but whatever you just said, or I'm like, oh, maybe it was like the dehydrator. Again, I don't know what's happening there.
My dad is a lumberjack, or he was for a really long time. You'd think that would have picked up more from that side of it, but he wasn't at the mill. He was just cutting the trees down. And so this is something too, is like I am definitely the product of a blue collar family, and for me to be kind of removed from those industries has been really interesting, but also having that connection. Like my father is like, you know, he loves to fish for pleasure. I mean, it's just like something everybody did. You know, you just go crabbing, when like the
everybody but us.
Yeah, no, and it's like I feel like I'm the world's worst coastie, which could be a great name for this podcast. Yeah, my dad had this story about how he was fishing one day and he saw that a sea lion had this like 36-pound salmon in its mouth. And so what does my father do? He guns the engine of his boat so he can slam into the sea lion. And then as he hits the sea lion, he pulls out a net so it spits out the 36-pound salmon. And my father scoops it up. Did I eat that salmon? Was it before I was born?
Right, we don't know where this is in the timeline, but yeah, I don't know that I would be jazzed to eat a partially eaten salmon that the sea lion had started on, but
It apparently looked delicious.
your dad must have been hungry. I don't know.
Anyway, so it's like things like that I'm like removed from, but I still have a slight connection to. Like I remember my dad would talk about like being up in the woods and logging, and he'd wake up at 2-3 in the morning, and you'd get in the crummy, is what you'd call it.
What's the crummy?
The crummy is just an old beat up truck that you drive up into the woods.
What?
Yeah, the crummy. Yeah, my dad would have a crummy, and he'd like doodle on it. I was like, "What are you doing?" He's like, "I'm writing words." I'm like, "Okay, Dad."
On the truck?
On the crummy. It's
on
not
the
a
crummy. Oh,
Yeah,
it's not even a truck.
yeah.
It's a crummy.
It is no. It's like a zombie almost. So
Do you think this is just a like your dad thing?
it could be. Who knows? So yeah, he would have like this chainsaw and have all his equipment up there. But yeah, sometimes we'd hear stories about how they'd cut the tree down, so they'd make sure that everything was like good to go, so they'd fall it correctly. But yeah, I mean, no matter how much you prepare, these are like gigantic things that we're chopping down. People would get hurt and people die like all the time doing this job, and it, like breaks your body. Like I think my dad broke his back doing it. Like I think he fell out of a tree. And so yeah, I have this like memory, like for years growing up, like I associated my dad with like, oh, his back's broken. He healed, but yeah, he's got those like crazy scars, and he's kind of like a metal man.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that he probably was interested, as a lot of people aren't, like in safety, or it's like, I don't need to wear, like a helmet or a seatbelt, or I don't need to be proactive.
Well, that is my dad, 100%.
But this is a lot of people too. So I guess I will ask, when you were little, was there ever any part of you that wanted to be a logger, or like thought that would be your...
No, never. Absolutely not. No. Hard no. Hard pass. No, thank you.
You even like when you were like 2 or something, you think
No.
it was like, oh look, Jordan, a tree you can chop down.
Nope. I something, and this goes into like nature versus nurture. Like my nature, I am not interested in that at all. Like I, peace, love, and happiness, man. Like, and thankfully I have this connection, so I'm not like so far gone of like, all the timber industry is evil. I mean, it's a necessary evil in a lot of ways. Yeah, I think my dad at one point had like something that like put you into the tree, and I think he put me on it once, and I was like, nope, don't like this. Yeah, your parents hired my dad to come and like chop off some limbs off a big tree, and my dad had no safety equipment on. My dad's in his 50s. He's in this like, ripped up tank top. He's like just kind of climbing up the tree like a goddamn ape, and he's got a chainsaw in one hand, his hands in the other. And I know that he's like broken and beat up, and yet he is like, halfway up this like 300-year-old tree, like trimming up the limbs so it like it is less of a danger to the humanity. And I'm just like, he's gonna fall out of that tree again. It's crazy. And like I'm very uncomfortable with a chainsaw. Like whenever we would go up into the woods to like get firewood to burn in our wood stove, like I was never chainsaw guy. I was split and maul guy. I'm a splitter and a stacker.
I mean, that's a pretty good guy to be. You look pretty good doing that.
Thanks.
It's impressive.
And I don't know if there's like something that happened with a chainsaw that made me uncomfortable, but yeah, I think the few times I've run one, I'm always like, oh, I wonder what limb I'm going to cut off of myself.
Yeah, I mean, it's dangerous.
So I think like a lot of towns that are shifting from whatever their industry used to be towards tourism, like I'm thinking of Bend in particular. Like what gets lost when you shift your focus from what used to be for like over 100 years, 200 years, like what the focus was in a region to tourism? Like, what are we losing? Like, is Tillamook going to have, like, an identity crisis when people aren't aware of, like, the importance of the timber industry to Tillamook, the fishing industry to Tillamook, the dairy industry to Tillamook? I mean, those things are all shifting very rapidly. And Bend was similar, I think. I think they were, like, a big timber area. I mean, obviously fishing probably wasn't as big of a thing for them. But I know that anytime that your dad goes to Bend, he's like, it's nothing like it was when I was here.
Yeah, I think it is kind of bittersweet for him, where he just is a little disturbed at what it has become. And yeah, like for us, we love Bend and have had a lot of fun, positive memories from there. But
But, we're also kind of like that. We're benefiting from a shift to tourism that's benefiting like hipster types like you and I. Like, oh, look at the art on this latte.
Right. So, I mean, I do think that, again, different people in charge of Tillamook, and like we have people that are from here and people that are not from here, and like just like Tillamook recently changed their signage, and so now we have this bright, like almost neon orange sign that has a white cow on it.
Or that bright orange cow, depending on which version you're getting.
Oh.
But yeah, the branding for the town, I don't think was super well thought out.
No, and like to me, right, it doesn't represent Tillamook, the town of Tillamook as a whole. And so I do feel like that wasn't the right direction that for me.
Taking a picture of a cow and associating it with like the annatto coloring in cheddar cheese.
Right. And so, and yeah, like I just feel like it doesn't represent like so many other people. And I think that they were taking, well, I don't know. I wasn't there at the meetings. I don't know how they ultimately decided or what the other options were or why they even felt the need to do that. But again, it's about branding. I mean, yeah, change can be difficult. But I think to me, it felt inappropriate because so many farms have gone out of business and like Tillamook isn't the dairy town that it used to be, and it's the same with these other industries. Like, so there is change, so where's Tillamook going from here? Who knows? Hopefully up, and hopefully it will be balanced, because Tillamook is a thriving community that isn't reliant on tourism necessarily.
Mm-hmm.
Not yet. Well, time will tell, huh?
So for you, thinking in terms of like where we are, who we are in this moment, like what would be something that you would pitch for people to go experience if they came and visited Tillamook?
Well, lots of people like to take advantage of our beautiful outdoor recreation. So I think that my number one is to go and explore, but to be thoughtful and not wasteful, but don't leave a mess. And so, okay. So that out of the way, I would say people coming to Tillamook, you should go and see the Bay Ocean Spit, which is a ridiculous history.
And I think we should probably, that could just be an episode in itself.
Yeah, that's true. Okay.
Yeah, it's a peninsula that separates the bay from the ocean.
If you are a kayaker, there are kayaking opportunities.
Because we have a lot of rivers. And kayaking the rivers is really interesting.
I would say I went on a boat in the Tillamook River once.
Who?
Chi.
Oh, nice.
Chi and Tina had a boat. I think like Chi had just bought a boat. And it took my mom and I guess.
Did you see a sea lion eating a salmon?
Was that in the Tillamook River?
I don't think they would be in the river. No, I think my dad was on the bay.
Yeah. I think all the things that I'm like, oh, I'd recommend are in. They
Just
are
on
not
the outskirts.
right. They are not in Tillamook. So
Munson Creek Falls.
also, that's technically not Tillamook.
Is it Pleasant Valley?
I would say it's Pleasant. But
They don't have their own post office.
Munson Creek Falls is a beautiful little easy hike. It's what, half mile, quarter mile?
I think it's a quarter mile to the falls. But it's the tallest waterfall in the Coast Range. Uh-huh.
You could visit the Tillamook Coliseum.
Ooh, which sounds like a place where gladiators gather. But no, it's the old theater in town. And the theater was kind of run down, and whoever took it over like kind of rejuvenated it and brought a lot of new life into it. And so it's a nice theater. It's nice that we have it. We've got a couple parks. I think they're trying to work on more walkability, more beautification of Tillamook. So like that slough that I talked about where the mill used to be, now they've tried to like reshape that into kind of a nature trail. It is a cool preserve. There's like a lot of interesting things that are there, like a lot of different seabirds you can see. So now they're trying to connect this slough to like the main city park in Tillamook. And so you kind of like, it's kind of a neat walk.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's nice.
And then there's exactly one public basketball hoop in town. Well, there's two. There's one public basketball court in town, and that's the 9th Street Park. I think it's Coates Park anyway. So they have some nice playground equipment. It's a little park. It's kind of like city block-ish in size, maybe like half of a city block. So I would play a lot of basketball there. And then right next to it is a tennis court, which was... But in tennis courts, it also just means it was a pickleball court. So it's mostly a pickleball court. We've never played pickleball there, but we've played badminton on the tennis court, which I think it's a bit of a faux pas, but our net doesn't work.
Yeah, I loved it. It was a good time. And I think we should play pickleball, but we haven't done it yet.
We need a paddle and a pickle.
I will say that instead of specific places, I would recommend coming to specific events like the June Dairy Parade, which is a very fun parade, or it used to be.
It used to be the second or third largest parade in Oregon.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's some good things going on. So if you're looking for a parade, that's usually a good time.
We're always looking for a parade, babe.
We are. And then Tillamook County Fair, that's like the second week in August, and
was a top 10 county fair, according to USA Today.
Oh, yeah. And that's like second week in August, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Whoa.
Katie says Tuesday because she just lived there that whole week, like showing animals and doing other things.
Right. So, pardon me. And like Moonlight Madness was just also like the last week in August. I don't know, you can just look it up. But anyway, I mean, I think coming to Tillamook, like when there's specific events, are fun. And hopefully the downtown's going to keep doing things. And, oh, I know. The Pioneer Museum. I know people really enjoy that. And that's been around for a long time.
I haven't been to the Pioneer Museum since I was like 8 years old. And there was a place where there's a bunch of taxidermied animals in there. And it terrified me.
Right. So, okay, this isn't the place that we're hanging out. Well, but we could start.
There also used to be a steam donkey out front, which was super cool, but they had to move it because like the logs it was resting on were rotting, and that it could potentially like collapse and crush people because there were homeless people who were living under it.
Yeah.
So it could have crushed them.
So
got a cool post office.
Okay, I think we're done with our recommendations.
Tillamook is like it's trying to do more events throughout the year because with the nature of the coastal climate, like you really can only be out and about like 3 months out of the year reliably. But Tillamook has tried to do like Christmas type events, like they tried to do kind of like a light parade. That was something that's in infancy still. Mm-hmm. And then there's also like the tree lighting ceremony. So I mean that was a fun thing. I remember covering that for the newspaper, and it was pretty good.
Yeah.
So Tillamook it's not as festive as some other small towns on the coast in terms of like what's going on in the holidays, but they are doing a little bit more.
Well, and even showing up like in the time of like charity drive. I mean, it's
February.
Like in February, and it's like every day there are multiple events.
And that could be like multiple meals that are going on, like big dinners that they're trying to do. There's also just I remember one time there was like be a Jedi training, so it's like a Star Wars thing, and if Disney catches wind of this, they will shut Charity Drive down.
Yeah.
So they were trying to do like fun things for kids. I think sometimes they do like dance lessons. Sometimes I think cow pie bingo sticks in my head for something that they do. Do you remember this?
No. But there was like, I remember like Jello wrestling or donkey basketball. I mean, they have a bunch of different things, and it changes every year. So
did you ever do donkey basketball?
I did not, but I know you did.
I did it twice.
You did it twice?
Yeah, and I'm nothing but leg, and so I look so awkward on a donkey. I probably also would look awkward on a horse, but I think it's worse on a donkey because I feel like I could still like reach the ground.
Yeah, what's the weight limit on a donkey?
10,000 pounds. Donkeys are very strong.
Did somebody ask you to do it, or did you just sign up?
I think I signed up because I was like, basketball? I like basketball. Donkeys? Yeah, cool.
I like donkeys.
I like donkeys.
I think I never felt like I could sign up because I had
a chip on your shoulder.
Yeah, and I just felt like there was other dominating forces in my class, and so I wasn't welcome to join, which could have just been my own insecurities. So
I'm gonna say it was that, and that I love you.
Aw. I love you too.
Aw.
So, okay, charity drive, good times, and then trying to think of like a spring event. I mean, well, they recently started doing like a helicopter drop of Easter eggs. I'm like, I don't know what's happening there.
That one's confusing to me.
Sounds like a lot, but there's a lot of Easter egg hunts if you happen to be in Tillamook around Easter.
Nothing says Easter to me like, here comes the helicopter. It's dropping a load of eggs. So if you were to do something different the next time you decide to be out and about in Tillamook, or decide to like pick up something new, what do you think that would look like?
Well, as we have addressed, pickleball, we have been invited to play a couple times.
By old retired teachers that we used to have.
I know, which we should probably just commit because we would probably have a good time.
Because they'll destroy us. They'll be like, remember that time you only got a B?
Oh my God, I know. Okay, well, what's one thing that you want to do before
I'm dead.
we leave Tillamook forever?
I imagine we'd come back at some point, but I'm looking out the window at the huckleberry bush, and I'd like to harvest those huckleberries.
Well, you better get to picking because there's a lot.
You better get to picking. So what happens with these huckleberries is that eventually all the birds in the world, like, cascade onto this bush, and they just tear it to pieces.
So do you feel like you're fighting with the birds?
I do feel like I'm fighting with the birds, and I don't want this, like, man versus nature narrative.
Jordan and the birds.
Jordan and the birds.
Oh.
He's got the clap, but not that clap.
What is the clap?
It's, I think it's gonorrhea. I think it would have been good for us to learn how to fish.
I think that's a good one.
Because we know how to fish.
Do we?
I think if there's if we were with somebody, if my dad took us fishing, I'd be like, oh yeah, I got this. I could bait a hook.
Well, I have never kayaked the Tillamook rivers.
Well, you can't go from one river to the other unless you physically relocate your kayak.
Have you been to all the rivers?
Yeah.
Tillamook,
Wilson.
Kilches, Wilson,
Trask.
That
fifth one.
And Tillamook.
Do we count Miami?
I don't know.
Is it Miami?
I don't know.
Yeah, anyway.
All right, well, if you figure out what the fifth river is, let us know.
How embarrassing. We've lost a river.
I don't know.
Maybe they count the bay as one of the rivers. Tillamook Bay. No, it's not.
So anyway.
So that's the next thing we want to do is find the fifth river.
I think that's a good idea.
So everybody, thank you so much for listening to this ramble sesh about our hometown.
We've already addressed its complicated feelings, but overall, we do love our hometown and accept it for all its imperfections.
And its perfections.
He's talking about you.
Yep. I am the Adonis of Tillamook.
I agree.
So in our next episode, we're going abroad again. This time, we're going to talk about my first time overseas, and that is when we went to Thailand to start a 3-month backpacking honeymoon adventure. And we're going to tell you about the Chonburi province of Thailand, which is a little bit of a dark horse. You probably didn't think that was going to be coming up, but I think it's going to be kind of interesting.
Ooh,
yeah. And since we're talking about Tillamook, guys, shoot us your favorite cheese or ice cream. Hit us up on @exploregonians.podcast or exploregonianspodcast@gmail.com.
favorite cheese? Not like favorite Tillamook cheese or favorite Tillamook ice cream?
Oh, yeah. Excuse me.
I mean, I just feel like we need to be a little brand loyal right now.
Okay, we're going to be brand loyal. If you give us anything that's not one of those, we're not going to like...
No, that's okay. But, I mean, that's my preferred.
And so, I don't know, let's get a conversation started, and we'll see like what we decide to do with that material in our next episode. Maybe do like a little shout out, a little cheese please.
Wow. The cheese please. I got nothing.
Yeah, it's
I was
good.
gonna say brigade, but that doesn't rhyme. Okay.
Cheese. Wait, so what was Tillamook's catchphrase again that we loved so much?
Cheese, trees, and ocean breeze.
And mud up to your knees.
I don't know. I just feel like I should say something profound right now, but
Please do. I'm all ears.
I mean, all I can think about is the disturbing visual of bubbling cheese. So thank you.
Blah, 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 blah.
No.
You or Red Leader?
How about a song?
Okay. Oh, there was a bucket.
Bucket in a hole. I was thinking that like hole on the wait.
There's a hole in the tree. and a
No,
tree
hole in
and
the
a
bucket. Bucket. Wait, what is your one? What's your
And
one?
the green grass grew all around and around, and the green grass grew all around.
What?
You ever heard that?
Sing it.
And on this, dun, 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 dun. I don't know.
What is the song? Sing it again.